All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. It is a pleasure to have the opportunity to yet again learn together. We are most of the way through Maseches Shabbos. We have some 35 blot left. Tonight we're going to be learning Daf Kuf, Chaf, Beis, and in Yirtzeh Hashem, finishing Perek Kol Kisvei and beginning the Perek of Kol HaKelim. We're on the second to last line on Kuf Chaf Aleph, Amud Beis, and we are going to get started right away. Here we go. It says the Gemara as follows. Amar Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana Amar Reb Chanina. Pamotos, a pamot, even in modern Hebrew, is like a single candle holder. You know, like a single candle holder that you might use to light on Friday night. So that pamotos shall base Rebbe mutter l'taltalan b'Shabbos. The din is that those pamotos, those small candelabras, were permissible to carry on Shabbos. Amar le Reb Zer benitlan biyado achas o b'shtei yadayim. Which ones are you talking about? The smaller ones that could be carried with one hand, or no, only the larger ones that could be carried with two hands? Answers the Gemara in an enigma. Amar le ke'osan shel beis avicha, like the ones that are in your father's house. Now, we were never in his father's house. How are we supposed to know? Because Rashi apparently. Take a look at Rashi. Dibur hamastil shel beis avicha diktanos hayu aval gdolos adam kovea lahem makom. So when it comes to the small ones, that would be considered mutter to carry, but the larger ones were not allowed. Amar Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Koronos shel beis Rabbi mutter l'taltalan b'Shabbos. These were some types of portable wagons, and those were permissible to carry on Shabbos. Same question again for the second time. Amar le Reb Zera benitlin ba'adam echad or b'shnei b'nei adam. Which ones are we talking about? Ones that are carryable by one person, or ones that are carryable by two people? Answers the Gemara. Amar le ke'osan shel beis avich, like the ones that are found in your father's house. Amar Rabbi Abba Bar Kahana, hitir lehem Rabbi Chanina lebeis Rebbe lishtos yain bekronos shel nachrim b'chosam echad. Here we're getting into territory of some yayin nesech or some stam yenam issues, and that is that one is not allowed to, typically speaking, one is not allowed to drink wine that is not mevushal, that's been exposed to a nachri. We were concerned about yayin nesech, about avodah zarah. Even today, ladina, if a person has wine that is not mevushal, the din is that if a guy opens it, you're not allowed to drink it. So I personally, as a mole, I always bring my own wine to the bris. First of all, it's much more convenient. And second of all, it avoids any challenges when they say, we spent $500 on this beautiful bottle of wine, it's not mevushal, and we opened it for you. Thank you very much for putting me in this compromising situation. So the Gemara here says a special din. When it comes to Beis Rebbe, that we're allowed to drink wine that was in the wagons of a goy, of a nachri, b'chosam echad, even if there's only one seal on the barrel, as opposed to multiple seals on a barrel. This is a machlokas in another masechta. Below Yadana, says the Gemara, Mishum desavar Rabbi Eliezer, Mishum Eimsa debe Reb Nasiya. And here we don't know, is it the reason why, in regards to Beis Rebbe, why is it that by Beis Rebbe we were lenient to follow the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer of Chosam Echad? Was it because he paskins like Rabbi Eliezer, that only one seal is needed, and that's deemed sufficient proof that the Nachri did not open the wine? Or no, really, we don't hold like Rabbi Eliezer. We hold that we need more than one seal, but it's Beis Rebbe, so there's Eimsa, there's a certain fear as it related to Beis Rebbe. There's Eimsa, the Bein Nasi. We don't know which one, but we do know that these cases were mutter. Now let's shift over to a slightly different topic. We did speak about this a little bit before, about Amir al-Nachri and about benefiting from a malacha that a non-Jew does, and that's going to take up much of our work for the remainder of the day. Let's jump right into this new Mishnah, and not only a new Mishnah, but the last Mishnah in the Perek of Kol Kisvei. We've spent so much time speaking about Matzilim min Adzleika, saving things from fire, Sifrei Torah, and food and clothing, and a bunch of iterations therein. And of course, over the last blot, we've been discussing some other matters. We learned a lot about killing bugs, v'chulei. Let's jump into the last Mishnah of Kol Kisvei. Nachri shehidlik hasaner. A guy lights a candle, presumably for their own benefit. Halacha is mishtamish la'or Yisrael. A Yisrael is allowed to use that light. The bishvil Yisrael, but if he lit it for me, then usher. Then then you're not allowed to benefit from his malacha. Mile mayim lahashkos behema. He filled up a trough in order to feed to give some liquid to his animal. So mashka acharav Yisrael. Yisrael can benefit from that as well. What was the issur that he did here? So Rashi points out that it was mistama from a reshus harabim. From a Reshus HaRabim to Reshus HaYachid. So that's where the Isser came in. Being Bishvil Yisrael, but if the Nachri drew up the water and violated the Isser of transferring Reshuyos on his own, but for you, Bishvil Yisrael, Asr, that's not allowed. What about a third case? The Gemara is going to ask, why do we need all three? That question should be itching for us. Like, why are you giving me three cases with all the same structure? Says the Mishnah, the third case, let's say you're on a ship. This will be the case at the end of the Mishnah. You're on a ship, and the Nachri builds this type of ramp contraption for you to get down from the boat. So there, the Nachri, he made a ramp for him to get down from the boat. A Jew is also allowed to do that. However, if he built the ramp for you, if he made the ramp for you to get down from the boat, so then you're not allowed to benefit from it. Maisa, there's a story, as the Mishnah writes, but Rabban Gamliel was a Zakenim, the Rabban Gamliel and the Zakenim, they were all on a boat. The Asa Nachri Kevesh Le'Reidbo. And the Goyim who were on the boat with him, they wanted to get off the boat. So they were very, very practical and pragmatic. They built themselves a ramp to get off the boat. They took some pieces of wood, they strung them together, whatever they did, they walked off the boat. What happened next? Yardu Bo, Rabban Gamliel Uzakanim. And they used that same exact boat because, why? Because the Goyim didn't build it for them. The Goyim built it for themselves. And once they built it for themselves, there's no reason why a Jew can't benefit from that as well. Says the Gemara, why all three cases? And answers the Gemara, Vitzricha. We need all three of these cases. Why do we need all three of these cases? Says the Gemara as follows. About halfway down on Kufchav Beis, on Aleph, right at the beginning of the Gemara. Diashmoina Ner, if the only case I had was the candle looking back at the beginning of the Mishnah. We said that if a guy lights a candle for himself, that we can benefit from it. But if he lit it for us, that's not allowed. So why do we need the case of Ner? Because Mishum de ner le'echa ner lemeya. Because when I light one candle, it serves a lot of people. I don't have to light one candle for every person. The room is dark, so I light the torches on the walls. It's like turning on the light switch. When you turn it on once, you don't turn it on 100 times or more people walk in. The light's already lit. So then I might have thought that by ner, that's when it's mutter, because you only have to light one thing. However, aval mayim, water, you have to go back and keep getting more. The more people there are. Aval mayim ligzar, we should have a gzera derabanan that it's not allowed. Dilma asila afushi b'shvil Yisrael. Maybe the guy is going to go back and say, oh, there's 10 more yidden. I'm going to go back and do my isser of transferring water from a rishus harabim to rishus hayachid. So we might have thought there was a chakira distinction to be made between ner and between what's the second case? Between ner and between the water, kamash malan, that it's a distinction without a difference. And at the end of the day, they're both going to be considered permissible to use, provided that he did it for himself and not for you. Next, the kevesh lamali. Why do I need the third case of the kevesh? That's also ner le'echa, ner le'meya. That's just like the candle. You build one ramp. You don't build one ramp per person. You build one ramp, just like we would have argued in regards to the case of the candles. Ner le'echa, ner le'meya. I don't have to light more than one. So says the Gemara, why do I need that case? You're right. There, we only brought that to add in the story. We just wanted to bring in one more marimakom, one more case in order to be able to include that circumstance, that Maisa of Rabban Gamliel. It's common practice for the Gemara to bring in contrasting sources in the Tanaim. So we learned our Mishnah, and now we're going to see another source in the Tanaim from a Tosefta, a somewhat similar Tosefta with some special differences. But back in the day, before there were Amoraim, this whole part that we just learned above Esricha wasn't there in the year 500. Well, the way the Gemara looked back then is that they had the Mishnah and then they had this Tosefta. Why? Because you'll see they're very similar. Let's see how this Tosefta contrasts with our Mishnah. Tanu Rabbana, the Rabbi taught us halfway down Kufchav Beis Meral. Nachri shaliket asavim. A guy violates the Isser, he doesn't have Shabbos, so by him it's not Isser, but by us it's Isser. He violates Me'amer, or whatever the Isser was that he was doing here, and he gathers together grass. Machil acharav Yisrael. He did it for his own benefit, so therefore a Yid can benefit from it. Bishvil Yisrael Isser, but if he did it specifically for the Yisrael, it's not allowed. Milei Mayim lahashkos behema, same as our Mishnah. If he fills up a trough in order to feed his own animals, mashka acharav Yisrael. If there's anything left over, the Yid is allowed to benefit. But if he did it for the Yisrael Asr. So says the Gemara, says the Tosefta, and this is where the second deviation really. The first was that the first case of this Tosefta was different than our first case. Nevertheless, the Gemara is going to focus on the Bamed Dvar Mamur. This Tosefta continues with the following qualification. Bamed Dvar Mamurim, when do we say what we say? That if the guy does it for himself, we can benefit from it. And if he does it for us, we're not. When am I allowed to benefit from the Maisa that a Nachri did? That's when I don't know him. I'm not friends with him, and he's not going to do things for me, only for me. I don't know him. He did it for himself and only for himself. He doesn't know me. She'ein makiro. And what's the diuk? Aval makiro aser. But if in fact I do know him, he's my neighbor, I've spent a lot of time with him. We let's say he works in our shul, and I know him well. So then, under those circumstances, says the Gemara, aval makiro asr. Then, even if he did it for himself, then we still can't benefit from it, even if there's leftovers, because l'chora he did it also for you. He knows you. He knows your needs. Eini, says the Gemara, is it true in the first place that if you know him, that if it's ein makiro, that if it's ein makiro, that it's mutter, that to benefit from his malacha, even though when he doesn't do it for you, he only does it for himself. Eini, is it true? There was a case where a guy did something that you were not allowed to benefit from. What was the case? We know that you're allowed to let the animals graze with grass that's attached to the ground, no problem, b'Shabbos. Aval lo al gabe muksa b'Shabbos. But if a guy on Shabbos harvested, and then you want your animal to graze, we don't allow them to do it. There it was ein makiro, and it's not mutter. But you just said, b'medvar mamurim, ein makiro is mutter. Here, ein makiro is not mutter. Problem. So what do we do to this? Answers the Gemara, no. The way that we would get around this issue is that the only real concern is not about the animal in that case. It's not even about Amir La'akum in that case. The concern was that you, the Jew, might pick up the freshly cut, harvested food that the guy just cut on Shabbos and make it near and just feed it directly to the mouth of the animal. That's usser. But here in our case, in our Mishnah, when it's mutter, don't worry about that case. He's keeping the animal there, but the animal itself is going to pick up the food. So therefore, this question falls away. Next question, Omar Mar, as we just saw in our Tosefta, we said that when is it true that you're allowed to benefit from the act of a goy when he does it for himself? That's when you don't know him, aval makiro. But when you do know him, usser. Wait a minute. What happened to our Mishnah? Rabban Gamliel was on a boat. Rabban Gamliel and Zakin were on a boat. And they made a ramp, and he went down the ramp. But he was makiro. And we just said that if he's makiro, usser. So how do you say that? Rabban Gamliel makiro hava. He knew everyone on the boat. This wasn't a 5-minute ferry ride. When they went on the boat back in the day, these were typically long rides. So you want to tell me in the Tosefta, contrasting with our Mishnah, you want to tell me in the Tosefta that if you're makiro, if you recognize the person, that you're not allowed to benefit from it? But Rabban Gamliel knew these people. Answers the Gemara, 2 different answers, 2/3 of the way down. Amar Abaye, answer number 1, Shalom b'fan of Hava. When they built the ramp, it wasn't in front of the Rabbanon. They only did it for themselves. They didn't see the rabbis at the time. In other words, Abaye is qualifying the Tosefta. When do we say that makiro is usser? It's makiro, and when it's done in front of you. He's like adding another level. But since here they were on another part of the boat, and the goyim couldn't see the Yidden when they were building this ramp, so therefore it was not a problem. Rava Amar. Rava adds, brilliant answer. You could even say that Rabban Gamliel stood there and watched them build it. Why? Because the guy would have built it for himself no matter what. Because ner le'echad ner le'meya. You only need one bridge, and he would have built that bridge irrelevant to view. He doesn't need Rabban Gamliel to motivate him to make a bridge. He needs to get off the boat. So he's going to build the ramp on his own. So because it's ner le'echad ner le'meya, and now, earlier in the Gemara, we did not give credence to this distinction. We said that even when something is not ner le'echad ner le'meya, we still said it's mutter, like the case of the water, when we might have been concerned that the guy was la'afushe, he was going to go get more water. Here says the Gemara, we're allowing us to make the distinction of ner le'echad ner le'meya in order to say that because the ramp only has to be made once, so therefore it's permissible to do so by this case. Macy, the Gemara asks a question against Rava. Omar lahen, we have another Mari Makom. This is another Tosefta. Omar lahen Rabban Gamliel. What does Rabban Gamliel say? Why was it allowed? Hoil v'shalo b'fanenu asa'o ne'redbo. Because when they made the ramp, they weren't in front of us. We can use it. Whose shita was that? That's Abaye. Abaye said that the Rabbanan were not standing there when the guy made the ramp. That's why it was permissible. That's a kasha on Rava. Because Rava said, I could even argue that you were standing there, and that, what did they say? And that it's ner le'echad ner le'meya. But we only need one ramp. So says the Gemara, that's a big kasha on Rava. Answers the Gemara, Ema, no, that Tosefta, you quoted the words wrong. So Rava is going to rewrite the Tosefta. What does Rava say? Ema, I would say, Hoel ve'asa'u ne'rebo. Since they made it, not lafanav, they just changed the language. Hoel ve'asa'u, since they made the ramp, and they made it for themselves, and it's ner le'echad ner le'meya, therefore I can benefit from it. And he takes away the language of shalo b'fanenu. Okay, Good question, good answer. Tashma, next question. You have a city that's mixed with Jews and non-Jews. And there was a bathhouse that people used in the city, a common bathhouse, not a mikvah, but a bathhouse. If the place is mostly Jewish, is mostly non-Jews, it's mostly nachrim, mutar lirchotz b'miyad, one is allowed to use the bathhouse immediately after Shabbos, even though time had not transpired with enough time to rewarm that water had it been cold. Because the place is mostly nachrim. So here we say it's mutar because that water is being warmed for nachrim. It's not being warmed for yidden. Im rov Yisrael yamtim b'chlei she'echamu chamen. And there we see that if it was mostly a Jewish city, then they should taka wait. But I don't understand, says the Gemara. Why do I have to wait after Shabbos the amount of time that it would take to warm up that water had the place been mostly Jewish? After all, ner la'echad ner lameya. You're only warming up the water once. Even if one guy wanted to go use that Beis HaMerchaz, you'd still have to warm up the whole Beis HaMerchaz. You don't reboil the water every time somebody walks in the room. So why do we say ner la'echad lameya over here? We used it earlier. Rabbi used it earlier. So is it a viable argument or is it not a viable argument? Says the Gemara, Hasam ki mechameme adaita deruba mechameme. There, as it relates to warming it up, it's not about the individual. We look at the rove. When they are sitting there, you have to look at the bottom line. These people are the owners of the bathhouse. They're going to say, who's going to pay us the most money tonight? Every time somebody walks in, they give us a ruble. So who's the majority of our city? Jews. So if it's majority is Jews, we don't argue ner la'echad ner lameya. We look at the rove. So in other words, if you put ner la'echad ner lameya on one side of the scale, and you put rove on the other, rove is going to win out. And therefore, because the rove of the city is Jews, we would therefore require that someone who wants to use that mikvah, that they're yamtin b'chdei she'echamu chamen, they would have to wait until enough time has transpired after Shabbos, as long as it would take to have reboiled the water. Tashma, 4 lines from the bottom. Ner hadaluk b'mesiba. There's a candle lit in a particular location. Im rov nachrim mutar lishtamish la'ora. If the place is mostly Jewish, it's permissible for a yid to use the lights. Im rov Yisrael aser. But if the city is mostly Jews, so then it's aser. Mechsa al mechsa aser. What if the population of city X is 50-50? Doesn't make a difference. Aser. Why? Hasam nami. And turning to the top of Kuf Chaf and Beis. Hasam nami ki madleke. When it was lit, it was a daite de ruba madleke. It was based on the majority, and even 50-50 here is going to be considered majority. 50 is not 50, is not 49. In other words, so that is a unique way to look at 50-50 and call it usher. But nevertheless, that's what the Gemara here writes. A quick story to end off the parak, and then we will jump right into parak called Kisvei Shmuel. Top line Kuf Chav Beis Mid Beis. Shmuel ikla lebe Avin Toran. He went to the house of Avin Toran. And in front of him, a guy walks up and he takes a match and he lights one of the lamps. Look at Shmuel's instantaneous response. Ahadrinu Shmuel la'ape. He turned around. You can't be neheneh from the malach of a guy. He turned around right away. Beautiful. Came in the chazoi da aisi shtar v'kakari, and then he saw, I don't know how he saw because he wasn't looking. Maybe he saw the guy left the space where the light was, and then he went to go get something to read, and he brought it over next to the. Oh, so the guy is doing it for himself, and he's doing it to read a shtar. He's not doing it for me. Then says the Gemara, Kevan the chazoi da aisi shtar v'kakari Amar adaite de nafshehu da'adlik. He's doing this only for himself, and ahadrinu ihu la'ape gabe shraga. And then he turned his face back toward the fire that this guy lit because he saw that it was clearly lit for his own benefit. Beautiful. Some of the shilas that we were speaking about on the bottom page come up tremendously and very practically when you are in a hotel, when you live in a place like Winston Towers. And it's a beautiful example because it's so similar in that they probably have a massive boiler in the basement of hot water. That's how a lot of older buildings are. If you lived in Eretz Yisrael, every apartment has a dud shemesh. But here in America and probably the world over, many large buildings have a huge water boiling system. So who lives in the building? 50-50, 49-51. So these are some of the sugyas that we would use to paskin whether or not you could use hot water in a large building. It is a prevalent thought among the poskim that if you're in a hotel, and there's not like a Pesach hotel where everyone's a Jew, but a regular hotel, you're stuck somewhere for work over Shabbos, so then the din is that it's mutter to use hot water because someone is using hot water at some point, and that hot water boiler is running constantly. Either way, Baruch Hashem, that brings us to the end of the parak. Hadron Allah kol kisvei, Hadron Allah kol kisvei, Hadron Allah kol kisvei hi ratzon. That we should be zochet to come back to this page in 7.5 years. Let's continue with the next, the beginning of the next parak of Kol HaKelim. Says the Mishnah, Any utensils can be moved on Shabbos, including their coverings. It's listed here as their doors, but it means that there are coverings. Even if they separated, even if the door, even if the top separated from the kli itself, still permissible. We're not talking about the front door of a house, the side door of a house. Let's say that my screen door popped off the back of my house. No. So that's mamish muksa. That you can't move around on Shabbos because that's not muchan. If it falls off on Shabbos, it's not muchan. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, this is Dibur Hamaskil, the Afal Pishan Isparku, 5 lines into the new parak of Rashi's. The Afal Pishan Isparku Adalsos Mina Kelim, even though these utensils, the tops of them came off, nitlin, they can be moved. The Ein Doman Ladalsos Habayis, She'ein Nitlin, those doors of a house, for example, are not moved. Lefisha Hadalasos Habayis, Einan Mina Muchan Metaltel. Those are never meant to be moved, She'ein on Kli, because those, they never have had a din of a Kli. They're either part of the house and they're mechubar and they're mutter to open and close, or they've fallen off on Shabbos and they're muksa because they're not Mina Muchan. These things are attached to their parents, as it were. The lid belongs with the kli. So that's the din in the Mishnah here. Third line of the Mishnah, notel adam kornas lefatzea boes agozim. You can take a hammer to break a nut open. Excuse me. Karjon lachtoch boes es hadvela. You can take something sharp to cut into a dvela, into a very thick cake. Megira lagur boes agvina. Something else sharp to cut into cheese. Magrefa. A shovel ligro poes agrobres to move food around, that's permissible. Es hareches ves hamalges lase salav lekatan. You could take a pitchfork to feed a child. What does that mean? Take a pitchfork to feed a child. So according to some of the Meforshim here, what you're doing is that you have yet to wash Netilas Yadayim. And as we learned that if a person touches food barehanded, their hand should get cut off. So they had to feed their child. They had no way to wash their hands. So they're feeding their child with a fork of some kind in order to avoid touching the food, which would give a ruach ra to the food and any other spiritual damages that is brought in the Meforshim primarily through the Zohar. And other Meforshim as well, and that's the example of the malgaze here with the katan. This is some of these types of sticks that they'd stick into foods, kind of like a skewer that you poke through a strawberry and through a pineapple if you were doing fruits on Shabbos, whatever the case may be. And machad, you can take a needle, shel yad, a small hand needle, litol bo esakot, to remove a splinter on Shabbos. You can take a small needle, great method to use. Shel skayim, these much longer needles, liftoach bo esadelas, to pick a lock on Shabbos. Their locks weren't as sophisticated as ours, but if you needed to pick a lock, you were allowed to take a longer stick. All of these are forms of permissible use of muksa on Shabbos. Says the Gemara 1/3 of the way down, Kufchav Bezman Beis. Kol hakelim nitlan v'afal pishni sparku b'Shabbos. So which way does this work? When did it fall apart? You just told me the din in our Mishnah, even though, the language of even though it's nisparku b'Shabbos. Well, that should be obvious that that's permissible. But what if it fell off during the week? I don't understand. Is that muchan when it's fallen off during the week, or is that like the sign that it's really useless to you now because it broke off from your utensil on Shabbos? Let's see what the Gemara says. Says Gemara, Rabbi, you got the whole thing backwards. B'Shabbos muchan and al gabe avi, and if it was attached on Shabbos and it broke off on Shabbos, that's called muchan al gabe avi, and that means that the lid is ready to be used with the pot. B'chol ein muchan and al gabe avi, but if it breaks off during the week, then it's useless to you. So it shouldn't be that Shabbos is a din and the chol is pashut, that it's obvious that if it fell off during the week, it should be useful. No, it should not be mutter at all if it falls off during the week because it's no longer connected to the kli. And the Gemara is troubled by the language of the Mishnah. Answers the Gemara, B'Shabbos muchanan al gabe avin, b'chol ein muchanan al gabe avin. If it falls off during the week, it's not muchan. Amar Rabbi, what's pshat in the Mishnah? Says Rabbi, hachik amar kol hakelim nitlin b'Shabbos v'dasos mahen. That on Shabbos one is allowed to take any container and its lid. Afal pi shenis parku b'chol, and that's a chiddush. The afal pi goes on shenis parku b'chol, not on Shabbos. That's the language change. Even though the chiddush is the afal pi is on the weekday, even though it's during the week, nitlin b'Shabbos it's still mutter to use because you can still use that lid in a meaningful way on Shabbos. Tanu Rabbanan, another Tosefta, Deles, Shel Sheda Teva Migdal, Shel Sheda v'Shel Teva v'Shel Migdal. If you have a door to various types of boxes, so then notlin, you're allowed to take them off. Aval lo machshir, you cannot put them back. V'Shalul v'Shel Tarnagolim, and for a chicken coop, lo notlin v'lo machzir. You're not allowed to take them off, and you're not allowed to put them back. So asks the Gemara, I don't understand this Tosefta. Bishlama, the last case I do understand, but the first case I do. Bishlama shalul shel tarnagolim. I understand that case. Kasavar kevan de mechabre be'ara yesh binyan bekarka yesh stira bekarka. Because the lul shatar golem is wedged into the ground, it belongs to the ground, and therefore we hold that there's binyan bekarka, and we hold that there's stira bekarka. So what did the Tosefta say? The Tosefta said that both of those were asur. Yet in the first case of the door of the Sheda Teva and Migdal, what did we say over there? We said that you can take it off, but you cannot put it back. But that's a contradiction in terms. Says the Gemara, Ella, I don't understand. Ishal Sheda v'shal teva v'shal migdal. My kasavar. Which way do you hold? I kasavar yesh binyan b'kelim. If you hold that there's an isser of binyan b'kelim, that we do have the isser of bona as it relates to utensils, then also yesh stira b'kelim. Then you should have said that it's usser to take it off and put it back. Or the aim stira b'kelim, aim binyan b'kelim. And if there's no stira by kelim, then there should be no binyan. But your split answer that you gave above of notlin v'lo machzir, and you can take them off the doors, but you can't put them back. That's a contradiction in terms. You either hold a binyan and stira b'kelim, or you don't hold a binyan and stira b'kelim. But this like middle of the road answer of notlin, you can take them off, but you can't put it back. How do you hold? What's pshat? What is this case where you would allow by the shade, the tevu migdal, to remove the door, but not to put it back? Answers the Gemara, 3/4 of the way down. Amar Abaye, Olam kasavar yesh binyan b'kelim, yesh stira b'kelim. Really, I hold that there is binyan b'kelim and there is stira b'kelim. But really, you got the Mishnah wrong. It's not that you're notlin, it's v'shenitlu, the door came off. So when it comes off, you're not allowed to put it back. Amar le Rava. Rava says, what are you talking about? Shtei tshuvos b'davar. I have two things to say back to you. Chada, look at the Tosefta. What does the word say? Did nitzlin katani. It was removed. Not that it fell off on its own. It was removed. So then we fall back to our question because it says it can be removed but cannot be put back. You, Abai, wanted to argue that it fell off and it can't put back. Fine. Then you hold yesh stira b'kelim, yesh binyan b'kelim. It fell off, Nebach, but you can't put it back. I understand. I gotcha. But you can't say that. That's not the language of the Tosefta. And not only that, the Ode, my avalo machzirin. What does that mean? Why can't you put it back? Which way do you hold? That clearly implies that he holds that there is binyan and stira b'kelim. Elamar Rava. How does Rava explain our confusing Tosefta that seems to have this mixed answer of nitlin avalo machzirin, that you're allowed to take off the doors of the sheda teva and migdal, but you're not allowed to put it back? Elamar Rava kasavar. Really, he holds deep down ein binyan b'kelim ve'ein stira b'kelim. Really, it's mutter to take off the doors and to put them back. So nitlin, we understand. Why can't you put it back? Answers the Gemara, Ugzeira Shema Yitaka. We have a din de Rabbanan. Really, ein stira b'kelim, ein binyan b'kelim. And really, you can take off the door of the sheda teva and migdal. It's mutter. And midoraisa, you could even put it back. But midrabbanan, we were concerned that you were going to put it back in such a permanent way that you would violate makeh b'patish, and that would, of course, be very problematic. We'll stop here tonight at the two dots toward the bottom of Kuf Chav Beis and pick up tomorrow night with Daf Kuf Chav Gimel. Wishing you all a beautiful night.